Okay, so I think we're live. All right, here we go. Welcome back to 504 Road Trips. I'm going to give this a couple of minutes until some people come in here. The problem with these masks is that they fog up your glasses. Is anybody watching? I see Ryan Flanagan and Tornado. I'm going to take this thing off. How's my audio? Can you hear me? Matthew? Trying to get the computer synced up with the camera. Matthew Tobias. Welcome to the stream. This is the first time I've ever done this in front of an actual camera. The camera's always pointing out the windshield. Um, I guess I've got everything set up the way it's supposed to be. And I'm doing this just because I wanted to get something out there. Uh, Nothing is as it was 2 weeks ago. And I'm also doing this because somebody mentioned that there was never a year 4 update. And for the past, for the previous anniversaries of 504 road trips, which happens in January 6th, I believe, we've put up a video talking about where we were that year and what was coming up. And we didn't do that this year just because there was too much going on. Work's been very busy for the last 6 months or so, and I just didn't have time to do it. We haven't had time to travel. We haven't really been anywhere. And I'm just working off of old material. The stuff that you're seeing uploaded every day is just old stuff. We haven't really been anywhere since we went to North Dakota back in July. So, um, in this video, we're going to talk about what we have covered this year. And the big thing that we did this year was the Blue Ridge Parkway. We covered the entire Blue Ridge Parkway from one end, from the north end to the south end, and that took us 3 different trips over the course of about a year. It was a little over a year to get the whole thing because it takes so long to do that, and you have very limited time during the day that you can get good video. Uh, it took us. It was a very it was a long trip, and it took a long time to put the videos together. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened there. And Matthew's asking, have we driven on I-35? And I'm trying to think. I-35, we covered part of I-35 between Austin and Dallas. I don't know if that ever actually went up on the channel though, because it was such heavy traffic the whole way. It was actually between Austin and Waco. And we ended up getting off of I-35 and getting on the back roads because traffic was so bad that we didn't want to just sit there in traffic for hours. It wasn't it wasn't going to make for good videos, so we just got off And the plan was originally to drive from Austin up to Waco and then head east over to Natchitoches, Louisiana, and that was going to get us back into the state. This was during Hurricane Harvey when I-10 was closed, so there was, the usual route between New Orleans and Austin would be I-10 to, I guess, to I-35. But I-10 was not an option because Hurricane Harvey had literally hit the day before we were supposed to leave for Austin. So, yeah, so we drove that part of I-35, and then in a very recent video, in our second Minneapolis city tour video, we were on part of 35W, just over the river, the part of the bridge that actually collapsed into the Mississippi River. That was the only part of 35 that we covered up in Minneapolis. Other than that, that's the only parts of I-35 that I've ever been on. Carrie has more experience with I-35 because she lived in Minneapolis for a long time. So, and that's something I would like to cover from, the south end to the north end one day. That would be a very long trip. We'd have to have some time to do it. But there's always the possibility that we're going back up to Minneapolis, since Carrie has some roots up there. So yeah, so back to what we've done over the course of the last year and 2 months. We covered a big chunk of I-10 in Texas. We drove from San Antonio back to New Orleans, and we got parts of I-10 that we had never covered before, which was pretty much from from San Antonio all the way to around, I guess it was Lafayette, Louisiana, that we already had video of between Lafayette and New Orleans. So we covered I-10 out there. We still have a lot of I-10 to cover. Considering that's our closest interstate, we'd like to get the whole thing, but that's going to take a while too. We've added a couple more New Orleans neighborhoods. We did McDonoughville on the West Bank in Algiers, and we did the Treme Lafitte neighborhood, Treme being made famous by the TV show Treme that came on, I think it was HBO, for several years after Hurricane Katrina. We covered a couple of suburban New Orleans neighborhoods, and that's something we're probably going to be doing more of in the coming weeks, just because we don't really have anything else that we can do with the what we'll call the events in the news, since we really can't talk about that on YouTube because they won't let us. I'll get demonetized if I talk about the events in the news specifically. We covered some local streets in Baton Rouge. We covered Cruising the Coast last October. That's something that we've done a couple of times now, and we'll be doing that again this year, provided that it happens. Assuming the events in the news of today are over with by then, which we really hope that they are. We're hoping that they'll be done with in 30 days or so, but that all remains to be seen. We covered almost all of I-94 in Minnesota from Minneapolis to the North Dakota state line, and we covered all of I-94 in North Dakota, all the way from the Minnesota state line to the Montana state line and 1 mile into Montana. More recently, we've done some back roads of Tennessee and North Carolina that take you between Chattanooga and Gatlinburg. Covered the city of Cherokee, North Carolina. We did some video at Lookout Mountain in Chattanooga. We've done a bunch of hotels this year. We did 2 different hotels in Chattanooga. We did one in Newport, Tennessee. We did 2 different hotels in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We did a hotel in Dickinson, North Dakota. We did a local hotel here in New Orleans, 1 in Biloxi, and 2 in Baton Rouge. So we've added quite a few hotels. Additionally, we covered parts of I-40, part of I-24, very short part of I-75, and I-81. And then I guess it was April or May, we covered the Mississippi River flood, which is an annual event, and it was particularly bad last year. We're going through something similar right now, but it's not anything that anybody's really worried about because it's pretty typical. Let me go back to the comments. I'm not really getting any comments. If you're here, say hello. If you got any questions, please feel free to ask. Matthew, I hope I answered your question. Got kind of long-winded there, but I think I did answer the question. So what we have planned for the future, if we're ever able to travel freely again, that may be a little while, but we're planning on covering the rest of US Highway 98, or at least whatever we can get into Florida. We stopped at Pensacola, and it's a pretty interesting highway. It travels along the Florida Panhandle and then turns south and eventually ends up at the East Coast, down in South Florida. So we'd like to cover that, and then once we cover that on the way back, we'll figure something else out to cover. We might drive down to the Florida Keys and come up that way, cover A1A up the East Coast. That's something we'd like to do. That takes time though, and it's hard to do that kind of thing when you can only get away for 2 or 3 days at a time. Normally for Mardi Gras, we'll leave town on a Thursday, and Mardi Gras is on Tuesday, and it'll give us 5 or 6 days that we can get video. This year we weren't able to do that because I was so busy at work that I wasn't able to get away. I actually worked through the weekend before Mardi Gras, and I was here pretty much every day except for Mardi Gras Day. We did not go to any of the parades or anything like that. We either get out of town or I'm working, and I was busy enough that I was able to continue to work through it. So as I said, we're planning on doing more local videos, just because it's going to be difficult to get out of the area right now. So I'm going to try and get some New Orleans neighborhoods, some local streets in New Orleans, maybe some suburban New Orleans. My original plan for that was to get out of the car and show some of the local things. That's going to be a lot more difficult to do since really nobody's going out in public right now. So it's probably just going to be drives, but that's really what the channel started out all about. That's what we originally intended the channel to be. So we're going to have some more of that stuff coming up. Let's see. We were also looking to do some other highways in Louisiana, not necessarily New Orleans, but some state highways that have significance. There are, I believe, 5 U.S. highways in Louisiana that we have not covered. And that's 165, 167, 171, and 71. And there's a fifth one that's an oddball number that doesn't fit in with the rest of the U.S. highway numbers. I believe it's 425 or something strange like that, and it's a pretty short highway. It just goes from I think it goes from Natchez, Mississippi, crosses into Louisiana, and goes up into Arkansas. Without a map in front of me, I can't be 100% certain, but I know I've looked at it a number of times, and just we've never been able to get that done. West Monroe is kind of out of the way, but if we get up that way, I'd like to do a city drive around Monroe and West Monroe. We can definitely try to cover something like that. I'd like to cover a little bit more of Shreveport. We've already done Alexandria. I'd like to cover Lake Charles, and that's another thing, is there is a 3-digit interstate in Lake Charles, I-110, that's a bypass, and I'd really like to get video of that because that's the only interstate left in southern Louisiana that we have not covered. We also haven't covered any of I-20 except for the little bits of US 80 that run concurrent with I-20 across northern Louisiana. So we'd like to get all of I-20, and that's something that could be done in a few hours. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much everything that we have planned coming up, uh, or tentatively planned. Everything is tentative right now because of the events in the news. Uh, Louisiana has been especially hard hit by the events in the news. I think a lot of that, especially in the New Orleans area, is because of Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras occurred right at the beginning of this crisis, and people came from all over the world, a lot of people in close quarters, and so the events in the news have affected a lot of people in the New Orleans area and throughout Louisiana, but it's mostly concentrated in New Orleans. Um, we also have a lot of cruise ships that come in and out of New Orleans, and that kind of thing can spread on the cruise ships, as everybody knows. Now, of course, they've all shut down the cruises just to avoid spreading it more, with everybody being in basically a tin can out at sea. If somebody has it, everybody's going to end up with it. Um, we're not on lockdown or anything like that. Who knows what's actually going to happen? I have a friend who's in the National Guard. He says they haven't heard anything about being deployed to enforce any kind of a lockdown in Louisiana. A lot of rumors are going around saying that that kind of thing is going to happen, but as of right now, it's not. Uh, Restaurants are closed. You can't go and sit down in a restaurant and eat. And I'm sure this is like this all around the world, or at least all around the United States. I know every country's probably handling things differently, but everybody in the United States seems to be on the same page. Restaurants are closed. You can go get takeout. You can get delivery. If they have a drive-through, you can go up and get food at the drive-through. One of the things that I found that I haven't really used yet since this crisis started is the fast food apps. And we like to get McDonald's for breakfast usually on Saturday or Sunday morning, and I'll use the McDonald's app to place the order because that way I can see all the options. It makes it a lot easier to place the order, and then you just tell the app when you get there, and you can either run through the drive-through and just give them the number on the app, or you pull into one of the pickup spaces and you tell the app which space you're parked in, and they bring the food out to you. It charges the food to your credit or debit card, and you don't really have to interact with anybody other than the person that's handing you your food. That's something that everybody should be utilizing if you know if you're trying to get fast food, and almost every fast food chain has something like that. A lot of the bigger chains that are more of a sit down type place have that. Um, they you know it, Chili's was one of the early adopters of that kind of thing. Of course, you had to call in at first, and you could call in, and then there was a Chili's curbside spot, and they bring you food out for you. Um, but The grocery stores are packed with people, all waiting to buy toilet paper. I don't know why they want toilet paper so badly, because the events in the news, the symptoms of those events don't include anything that involves toilet paper. Uh, I figure we have a couple of months' supply just because that's what we bought last month, and that'll last through the crisis. Um, Other things like meat, eggs, uh, canned goods are very difficult to get, but if you get to the store at the right time, um, you can get the stuff that you need. Um, so nobody should be starving. Uh, I lost my train of thought. One of the problems with going to the stores is a lot of people in a small space, and that's probably the most dangerous place you could be, other than maybe a hospital. Um, I wouldn't want to be going into an emergency room right now with a bunch of sick people, because you don't know they quarantine they isolate the people that are suffering from the events in the news as soon as they get there, but you never know who else there has the events in the news and doesn't know it yet. So I'm not really going to be going anywhere other than home, in my office, and then places in the car where I don't have to be exposed to other people. And it's going to be like that for a while. Now we have a question from Zachary. Being on the road all the time, do you have any favorite restaurants around Louisiana? Well, we're not on the road all the time. Uh, that's something that may appear to be the case, but we take a few trips a year, and then they get spread out over the course of the year on the channel. But when we travel, um, we spend so much time on the road when we're traveling. Uh, we don't usually have time to stop and eat. If we have a destination, we go to that destination, but stopping to eat just takes up too much time. Uh, to be honest with you, I like Dennys, and I think that's the last uh, roadside type restaurant that we ate at. Usually, if we want to grab something to eat, we'll just stop at a McDonald's or a Taco Bell and hurry up and eat. Excuse me. We'll hurry up and eat and then get back on the road. When we're in the hotels, if there's food available and it's not ridiculously expensive, we'll eat at the hotel. A lot of times that kind of thing is included. We'll almost always have breakfast included with our room, and sometimes we'll even get dinner vouchers depending on the hotel and how we've decided to either pay for it or use our points. So yeah, we really haven't been hitting a lot of restaurants other than fast food places on our trips. Um, but yeah, Denny's, we don't have a Denny's close by here. And actually, it's not Denny's I was thinking of. It was Shoney's. There's a Shoney's directly across the street from my office where I am right now, and we almost never go there because the service isn't all that great, and they're usually really packed. Uh, we ate at the Shoney's on I-20, right inside of the Texas state line, just west of Shreveport. Uh, that was a while back, and the Shoney's was really good. The good thing about Denny's is they're open all night, and when we had a Denny's local to here, which we don't anymore, that was one of the places, and this was when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. We would frequently, me and my friends would frequently spend half the night inside of Denny's, just drinking coffee. Um, and of course we'd eat sometimes, but we'd mostly just drink coffee. And I'm sure they were real happy with us, that we weren't spending more than a couple of dollars a piece and taking up a table all night. But that's what people do at Denny's in the middle of the night. Um, so anyway, who else is with us right now? I'm kind of surprised there's only 3 people watching, but I guess it's the middle of the day right now, and this is probably a bad time to do a live stream. But I wanted to get this video up because somebody did ask me what happened to our year in review, and we just didn't do it back in January like we normally would have. So, the video will be up to watch for anybody that wants to watch it for all of eternity. But I think I'm going to wrap this up here unless anybody's got any questions. If you do, type it in real fast and I'll try to answer it. Um, if not, I'm going to shut it down. I'll give you a minute in case somebody's a slow typer. And yes, I'm still drinking coffee at 3:30 in the afternoon, but it's the same cup that I started with this morning when I got here. Okay, assuming no other questions, I'm going to shut it down. I want to thank y'all for watching, and for those who watch this in the future. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. We're approaching 4,000 subscribers, and I think we're going to be there probably in the next few days. Let me see where we're at right now. We're at 3,950 something subscribers. I can tell exactly how many we have. 3,956 subscribers. So we need 44 more subscribers to hit 4,000, and that's a pretty major landmark for us. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. Hit the thumbs up button if you like the video. Check out our merchandise at 504roadtrips.spreadshirt.com. We also have a Patreon, and since I'm not, I don't normally, I'm not an e-beggar, I normally don't mention the Patreon too much, but we do have a Patreon, and if you feel like throwing us some money our way, please feel free to do so, because right now I'm pretty much out of work. For the last 3 days I've had almost no business, but I know everybody's in the same boat, so I don't want anybody to feel in any way pressured to do anything like that. But so yeah, Spreadshirt, Patreon. If you want to support us, buy a T-shirt. You know, we got some neat T-shirts on there. If you got any ideas for any T-shirts, you know, send me an email at 504roadtrips@gmail.com. Hey, Range Rover Roads, you joining us kind of late. I was just wrapping things up. But yeah, if you got any suggestions for something you want to see on a T-shirt, email it to me, and I'll see if I can draw something up, and we'll put it up on Patreon. We sold about a dozen shirts in the past year, so you know, that's pretty good. We get a little bit of a commission on that. Yeah, Range Rover. I love Waffle House. Unfortunately, when you're traveling, I've found that in some places they are way overpriced, and the local ones here suck. So I don't go to any of the local ones here. The closest one I'll go to is in Slidell, Louisiana, which is about 40 minutes away. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks everybody for joining us. I'm currently, I'll say this one more thing, I'm currently working on a short series of a drive we took in Florida in December of 2018. So that's going to be coming up. First video of that's going to be tomorrow. I think it's probably going to be 3 videos, and then hopefully I'll have some local material to put up at that point. If not, I've got I-65 between Mobile and Birmingham, Alabama. So I'll start running that series if you know, if I don't have any local material to run. But that'll be coming up in the near future. So thanks for joining us, and be sure to join us for our next 504 road trip.